Happy Friday, Mayor Dan Pope, with a special Friday video as promised. I'm joined by our Lubbock Police Chief, Floyd Mitchell. And we've got a lot going on in our country and in our city as we have very courageous and appropriate conversations around police and how we enforce the laws that are on our books. And so I thought it might be a really appropriate for us to spend some time with Chief Mitchell this morning. And so, Chief, we're glad you're with us. Thanks for joining us. You've been here 6 months. It just, like we were talking a minute ago, it's like dog years. It seems like much longer. But give us a little background on you. Where are you from? How'd you get to Lubbock, Texas?
Well, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate you having me on. Actually, I got to Lubbock, Texas via Kansas City, Missouri. I was born and raised in Kansas City, Missouri. Spent 25 years, a little over 25 years there with the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. Retired from there back in 2015 and took the police chief's job in Temple, Texas. I was in Temple as a chief for just over 4 years before I migrated to Lubbock, Texas, and took the position here. Been here just over 6 months. Family's here. My son is a junior at Texas Tech, and building a new home so we can really get our roots established here and become part of the community as a whole.
That's great. That's good. We're glad you're here. The last nearly 2 weeks have been pretty remarkable in our country, and really
absolutely
going around the world. But how would what's your take on that? And we've had now in Lubbock, I think, 7 straight days. There's been some form of largely largely peaceful protests.
Right.
Appropriate, I think, but including a walk that you and I got to take, a march we got to take part in together on Monday night.
Absolutely.
Give me your perspective on all that.
Yeah, Memorial Day weekend, May 25th, I think it changed policing and the way the police culture is viewed across the world, especially here in the United States with the death of George Floyd. The African American community, along with the minority community in general, has always had some concern with how they were being policed in regards to how the police interacted with them. And after that video was released and really people got a chance to view it, by that Wednesday, there were protest demonstrations, and again, across the nation. Most of them have been peaceful and meaningful and really talking about the issues surrounding police and how they interact with the minority community. Here in Lubbock, we have had, I think you, the city manager, the police department, have really tried to focus on providing venues for demonstrators to voice their opinions, give them space to talk about what's on their mind with the locations that we have over there at 19th and University, the march that we had on Monday. And like I said, we've had 7 days of continual protest here, but people have had the opportunity to do that peacefully and respectfully. And our position from a police department standpoint is to make sure that they can do it safely and providing them those venues to do it. I think we've done so. We've got another large event planned for this weekend that again, working with the organizer to make sure everyone can voice their opinion in a respectful and safe environment.
Yeah, so how do we respond? I mean, this unrest and protest. I mean, what do we do? What have we done? You and I have both heard a lot from a lot of people about this 8 can't wait,
right.
8 ways to 8 practices that would, in theory, end police brutality, I think. So, but let's talk a little bit. Let's go right. Let's get to the meat of this. Let's talk about it.
I think it's important for our audience to understand that, just being here for a short time, the groundwork had been laid from previous administration. So it's not something that is just started. Our police department makes a point of engaging in their community. I think that's helped us as we move through this this situation that's basically engrossed America and its policing culture. We have to make sure that our community knows that we are, with them. We are a part of that community and not apart from it. So I think it's important for us to continue to extend the olive branch, to get these folks to come into our locations, to show them how we police, and to be as transparent as we possibly can be. And like I said, we've said in other meetings, we know that is a word that's being used a lot here.
Yeah.
You have to, you can't just use that word. You have to show it, and having press conferences and talking about issues that are affecting us locally, and putting out information as fast as we can in regards to police contact that are bringing in questions regarding how we do our business. I think it's important for us as a police department and as a city to continue to provide the information to our public as fast as we possibly can, responding to their request and being attentive to their requests and needs.
So let's keep going on that line. Let's talk specifically about that. You're going to respond today to the 8 Can't Wait deal. I want you to talk about that a little bit. I also like you to talk a little bit about some video that surfaced late on Wednesday of this week about an interaction that we had with a citizen on the West Loop. And we're actually going to we're going to release information on that. We've already released a statement, but we have more coming on that. Let's talk about that and from a factual standpoint, but also maybe just from a philosophical, that we're going to be out, we're going to talk, and we're going to be open. And I'm curious what your thoughts are.
So late on Wednesday evening, right around 10 o'clock, I got the call from Assistant Chief White, who's over patrol. He said, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know that there is a video surfacing of one of our officers using force to take a person into custody." And it was just a short 10-second or 15-second video, and all it showed was, our officers on the ground, and the officer applies 3 strikes to the abdomen area of the individual. And when you just look at it at that small 10-second context, all you see is an officer applying 3 strikes. So what we did was, as soon as the officer could download the video, we got the video, we got the reports, and I reviewed them personally, along with my command staff, and we started the redaction process. The redaction process is no more than trying to get, blur out or voice out any information that would give personal data in regards to the person that was arrested. So, but just letting our community know, when you see those videos, every use of force by the local police department is reviewed. Every use of force is. And we wanted to make sure that we can put out the full context of what occurred. So that video was only 10 or 15 seconds. We're going to put out over 30 minutes worth of video today to show you the interaction between the officer and the person before the use of force.
Different body cams, I understand. Isn't that right?
Yeah. 3 different body cams, and how that use of force, how they ended up getting to that 10-second or 15-second clip. The person was placed under arrest. The officers were attempting to put the handcuffs on them, and the individual stiffed up, and they all started to pull away, and they all fell to the ground. And the officer asked him to show his hands or pull his hands out from underneath him, and when he didn't, the officer applied strikes to get him to comply. In our community engagement meeting this morning, one of the persons attending said, and you started the conversation with, policing sometimes, doesn't look pretty. Right. As soon as the officer applied the force and got the person in custody and under control, set the person up, treated them with dignity and respect, or gave them water on a couple of different occasions, and went on with the arrest. So what I want to communicate to our public is to make sure they understand that, our officers are being respectful, and we're going to continue to be respectful during these encounters. There are times when we have to use force, and in those times, as soon as the threat or the situation calls for de-escalation, we're going to do that. That is a huge part of policing, is de-escalation, and trying to make sure that we are doing those things that will bring those situations to closure without anyone getting hurt.
So when you looked at the video, you feel good about the way our people went about their job.
I do, and that's part of my responsibility as well. I think one, I want to make sure that people understand that I'm going to protect our community as best I can as the head of the police department. But I also have to make sure that my police officers understand that when they do their job correctly, I'm going to protect them and defend them as well. And our officers did a good job during this incident.
So we'll see that video today. We'll also see a response in writing to this 8 can't wait, taking our policies that are in place today and going with each of the 8 recommendations and sort of proving up the fact that we're there, that I think people feel like because we're 300 miles from everywhere that we're just in the, way behind. And I would argue that when it comes to some of the policies and procedures we have in place, we're helping lead the way.
Yeah, we're pretty progressive here. And again, these policies were in place before I got here. But the 8 Can't Wait talks about 8 policies that, from an evidence-based policing standpoint, that police departments should be implementing to reduce the occasions of police brutality. And these have everything to do from, reporting, intervention from a police officer when they see someone other officer doing something, and our use of deadly force. So you and I and the city manager have gotten several emails from across the nation, really, but, which is kind of interesting, saying, "Hey, these eight
several
policies,
that you say several,
maybe several hundred, yes,
yeah, okay,
saying that these policies should be implemented." So what we did is I had one of my assistant chiefs go through our policy and actually take the exact wording out of our policy and put into to answer each of these questions. We are very progressive here, and we addressed each of those 8 recommendations, and we're going to address each of those 8 recommendations in the press release we're going to put out here shortly.
Let's sort of shift and talk a little bit about going forward. First of all, what's the morale of your team like? The force. I mean, I think there's people. I've had a number of folks ask me how are our guys doing?
Right,
I mean, so what's your
morale is one of those words that I kind of translate to how is the health and wellness of the men and women who show up every day?
Right.
How are they feeling, and what is their temperature? Because I need to make sure that when that officer gets in that car, that his mind is focused right then and there, his or her, being present in that situation. So, early last Wednesday, right after, it's really 2 weeks ago at this point in time, after the George Floyd story broke, I called an emergency meeting with my command staff, and we sat down and we talked about, has everyone seen this video? Does anyone have any questions about how wrong this incident and this use of force was? And everyone was on the same page. And then my instructions to my command staff was, we're going to meet with everyone. I want you to meet with your supervisors, your lieutenants, your sergeants, your corporals, and your officers, and talk about this situation and understand that, hey, we need to make sure that we are giving space and room for people to voice their concerns over how police interact with our community, and be mindful that when you stop this person, there may be things going on in their minds or in their lives that affect the way they respond to us, and to make sure that we are, again, giving space when we can to be safe and secure, but to do our job. So, the morale is for law enforcement across the United States right now is, we are, being scrutinized heavily, but that's part of the job. That's part of having the authority to do some of the things we do. Is we have to be accountable to our public, and I believe they're taking it very well.
So, what do we need to do what kind of advice would you give our community? And maybe it's similar to what you're giving your force. How do we move? How do we get better? How do we move forward? I mean, we don't want to get past protest too quickly. It's important, but what do we do to be different?
I think we have to, again, talking about some of the things that were discussed in the community engagement meeting. We have to be willing to have these difficult conversations. We have to be willing to understand the other person's feelings and where they are and how it affects them personally. Going through this situation, I've had several questions, posed to me, or several conversations posed to me by my boys. Just talking about how I was responding to this as a law enforcement person,
Right.
and then how I responded to it as a black man who
Sure.
grew up in America. So I think you take all those things into consideration, and I take it into consideration in how I lead and how I talk to people, and just trying to talk to my staff so they understand that, hey, you need to look at it from the other person's viewpoint, and look at all the things that have occurred up into this point, and just take that into consideration as we move forward and have our conversations with people of our public.
Excellent. Anything else you wanted to share with the good people of Lubbock, Texas?
We still have several demonstrations and protests planned. Our job and the instructions to my staff is, we're going to try our best to provide you a safe environment to peacefully protest. Respect the rights of others who may not agree with you, whether they're in the same crowd as you or across the street from you. Respect the property rights of the business owners and homeowners in the city of Lubbock. We are going to provide you space to do that for your safety and for the safety of others, and we look forward to continue working with them.
Yeah. I think we want to harness that energy and from the protesters and use it to continue to move our community forward.
Absolutely.
Right? Whether it's citizen police relations or economic development or overall
Absolutely.
health and safety of our people and our economy. I think that's what we're trying to do, right?
Yes. Again, I think this provides a venue for us to speak. Again, have those serious conversations that affects us all, both in the home, the business, and the government sector. So I just look forward to, again, talking with everyone that's involved in the Community Engagement Task Force meeting, and being progressive and being open to change, looking at our policies and procedures each year, and if something needs to change, we'll be the first to make those changes.
Thank you. Thanks for spending a few minutes with me this morning. I for one, am glad that Floyd Mitchell is leading the Lubbock Police Department. I think he's the right man at the right time. I can't be more pleased with the way you've responded to a lot of situations in the last
6 months.
6 months. We've got to see you in crisis. We've got to see how you lead, and I think that's when character, someone's true character comes up. We've seen that with you, and so thanks for spending some time with me.
Thank you.
I just want to remind you, we'll be back next week with our regular Friday video. It's a great day in Lubbock, Texas. We still want to hear from you. We want your good ideas. We want your encouragement, and certainly we count on your prayers. Talk to you soon.